Hi, Dr. St. Jacques. Thanks so much for helping me present remotely and for accepting this assignment this way. I really appreciate it. So we're going to do a combination of things. My daughter's actually recording for me. I'll speak to the camera and then we'll shift to the slides and then the video clip as well. And I hope that we can cover all three really easily and understandably for you. So let's go to the slides. The clip that I'm sharing, or the film that I'm sharing, is called Still Alice. And Still Alice is a film that was released a couple of years ago, and it features Julianne Moore and Alec Baldwin. And they are a couple that struggle with the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. Alice is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and the couple struggles to figure out how to assimilate that information and how to live with this condition. So let's go into a little look here at John and Alice. So Alice is somebody who's very accomplished. She's a linguistics professor at Columbia University in New York City, and she's diagnosed with Alzheimer's at the age of 50. So very young, and she's so accomplished in her career. She's very eloquent when she speaks. She has such a passion and love for communications, and so it's particularly, I think, difficult for her and perhaps poignant for the viewer to imagine a woman like this experiencing a condition in which the thing that she loves the most, communications and words and such, is the thing that's attacked with this disease. So it really attacks who she is, her identity, as well as, of course, her physical body, and ultimately her marriage and her relationships with her family as well. John and Alice have 3 grown children, Lydia, Anne, and Tom. And so 2 girls and a boy. Lydia is herself married and is thinking about having a family as well. So as Alice is diagnosed, Lydia and her family struggle. Lydia and her husband struggle with the knowledge that this diagnosis of Alzheimer's may in fact have genetic predisposition, and that their children may be at risk as well. And throughout the course of the story, as Alice's condition continues, John and Alice both wrestle with what does this mean for them, for them as a couple, for the family, for Alice herself personally, and then also for her physical care. John, as a character, he is quite also an accomplished person. There's not a lot of deep exploration of John in the story, but it seems as though he is a physician and a medical researcher. And he and Alice have a very loving, supporting relationship. They reflect fondly on shared memories, and they just have a lot of fun together as a family, a lot of fun together as a couple. And so he is heartbroken with this diagnosis of Alzheimer's. And he goes about the work of arranging for her care, and then also figuring out how should he proceed with his own life, with his big career that he has, and just what the implication is for him as well. Within the story, you also get exposed to what the relationship is like with each of the children. So here's Tom, Lydia, and Anna. Each of these children has a different response to the disease and to what they're experiencing with mom as well. Alice, as the disease progresses, she starts to experience things like she gets lost when she goes out, and she's a runner, and so this is a problem because she'll go out running and then forget where she is. She forgets plans that she's made with the family. She forgets the names of people. She's ultimately needs to resign from her job because she's not able to teach any longer. And so her family struggles with supporting her and loving her through it and trying to figure out how to care for her. So I'd like to show you the video clip now that I was going to share with the class.
Well, then I went to Pinkberry.
You went to Pinkberry?
Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that because you completely blew our dinner plans. Susan Kirby and her husband?
I'm sorry, I forgot. I have Alzheimer's.
I tell texted you. I emailed you. There are ways to
John,
manage
I
this issue.
said I was sorry.
She's the chair of my department, for crying out loud. I had absolutely no idea where you were if something happened to you. Why didn't you bring your phone?
I told you I can't when I'm running.
Why don't you wear a fanny pack? Is it really that inhibiting?
Yes. I hate this is happening to me.
I hate it too. But we have to keep the important things in our life going. We have to try, or we're going to go crazy.
I know, John. I am sorry, but I don't know what I would have been like at a dinner party. I might not be able to remember names or answer simple questions. I mean, never mind get through an anecdote.
I think you're doing great recently.
Relative to what? I wish I had cancer.
Don't say that.
No, I do. I mean it. I mean, I wouldn't feel so ashamed. When people have cancer, they wear pink ribbons for you and go on long walks and raise money, and you don't have to feel like some kind of a social... I can't remember the word.
So that is the clip that I wanted to share. Let me flip back here to the slides. There we go. And the questions that I would have for the class in the context of this clip are these three areas of questions. So who do you think is the withdrawer and who is the pursuer, using the EFT frame? And then secondly, what feelings do you see John struggling with? And do you see Alice struggling with in this clip? And then finally, how does the Alzheimer's diagnosis complicate the withdrawer and pursuer roles? And how might the Alzheimer's also complicate our counseling work? So here I was envisioning some breakout time with the class, perhaps in small groups of 2 or 3, and just having them discuss and report back. So taking these questions up myself and sharing what I'm seeing, this is what I would offer as an assessment. So first, in this clip, John seems to be the pursuer and Alice seems to be the withdrawer. So we see John actively engaging Alice with, hey, where were you? And Alice actively withdrawing from that, physically withdrawing, but then also having emotionally withdrawn as well. She made herself unavailable for the social engagement that John had set up. And she actually, although she plays it off as it was an Alzheimer's thing, she also then seems to admit that I don't know how I would have been in a social engagement. And so it seems as though she is choosing to use the Alzheimer's as an excuse, or the diagnosis as an excuse not to participate in this social engagement, because she actually feels uncomfortable in those settings, given that she's not able to participate as she used to. But overall, I'm seeing John as the pursuer here and Alice as the withdrawer, and that is kind of consistent in the rest of the story as well as you see the rest of the film. So what emotions are they feeling? I see John as expressing confusion. He's confused by Alice's increasingly erratic behavior. He also shows worry. Like, where were you? Can't you carry a fanny pack? Can't you carry a cell phone? Because he's worried about her safety, and he's worried that if she gets lost, how will they find her? He also still wants to try to keep it together as a family. He's aspiring to keep up their priorities and encouraging her to do that as well. Alice, meanwhile, is wrestling, it seems, and she actually says this, she's ashamed by her diagnosis. It would be better, she says, if she had cancer, because people, make ribbons and go on walks and such. She's angry about her diagnosis. It's taken away so much from her and from her career. And she's also seeming to lack in empathy for what John must be feeling. She's so consumed with her own feelings that she's, at least in this moment, unable to empathize with what it must like to be John and to have made this social engagement with the chair of his department and not have her show up. The last thing I wanted to add in here about Alzheimer's as a complicator in the therapeutic relationship. Clearly, this is not a marriage that is sort of, well, it's not a simple scenario, let me say it that way. Alzheimer's is, I'm seeing it almost as an unwelcome third party, an additional player in their relationship. It is a disease that is slowly changing Alice. It is slowly eroding their relationship. And we know that Alzheimer's is fatal. There is no treatment, there's no cure. The research that I did showed that Alzheimer's typically has a life expectancy of 8 to 10 years. So in Alice's case, being diagnosed at the age of 50, we could expect that she lives into her late 50s. This, of course, is not what John and Alice would have expected at this stage in their life. They're kind of at the height of their careers, and they are imagining an early end to Alice's life. So that is going to be enormously challenging to them as a couple, and so staying attuned to one another is going to be a challenge in the therapeutic work that we'll be doing together. So applying the How We Love styles to John and Alice, what I see as I look at those different categories is actually that John and Alice both seem to be secure connectors. I don't see them as being neatly fitting into the pleaser, avoider, vacillator, controller, or victim category, but I do see them potentially fitting into avoider. They sometimes look like avoiders, but they mostly look like secure connectors. So some of the avoider behaviors that I've seen, that I saw in the rest of the film, were things like their response to stress, because each of them responds by planning and taking control. Later on in the story, Alice actually records a video for herself where she encourages herself later on, as she deteriorates further, to take up a suicide plan. And John, he acts out by accepting a job out of state, almost kind of running away and avoiding the situation. So given that the Yurkoviches talk about planning and control as a hallmark of an avoider, it seems to me that that is one of the cues here that we are looking at avoiders. Avoiders are also task-oriented and are high achievers, which certainly fits well for each of John and Alice. They also can be very private people. They prefer not to process their emotions with others. They prefer to be self-sufficient, to solve their own issues. And you see both of them, I see both of them as fitting in that frame as well. Avoiders also attempt to soothe themselves by moving away from the irritation and by problem solving. And again, I think with each of John and Alice sort of taking control of the situation, Alice with the suicide plan and John with the accepting a job out of state, I see each of them as responding to the situation by creating solutions that way. So potentially they could be seen as avoiders. So if we think about doing therapy work with John and Alice, and just to point to this note here first, I am creating an assumption here that the moment when the argument occurs is when I'm bringing in therapy. Because Alice, of course, deteriorates physically and mentally here forward. And so it's at this moment that they seem to potentially need some support to be able to express themselves and support one another. Okay, so just returning back up to the top of the slide. So in therapy, how would an avoider-avoider relationship work? Each of them would, it seems to me, want to sort of exert planning control. They would want to avoid expressing their emotions. And especially given that each of them are also potentially trying to protect the other from the emotions that they feel, this might be an issue to expect in therapy. And yet there are a lot of emotions present, and so the therapist would need to work to try to give name to those emotions and have each of John and Alice owning their own emotions. And they're going to include things like grief, loss, anger, fear, shame, and a lot of love. And then, as mentioned earlier, I see the disease itself as a therapeutic consideration, given that the disease really represents almost a player in their marriage. So what are they experiencing in response to that disease, and how is the disease impacting them? Some of the interventions that I think we could bring forward, there are 3 that I would recommend from the Yurkovich work. The first is a set of soul words. So this is a great body of work that the Yurkoviches have done to identify emotions that people experience for people who have a hard time naming their emotions. So this would be a great place to bring forward feelings that they have toward one another, the children, career disruption, life disruption, the Alzheimer's itself, and just being able to name those themselves would already be an intervention. And then in addition, to be able to imagine what the other person might be experiencing and use those same soul words to describe what the emotions are that the other might be experiencing. The second idea that I have is a comfort circle, and this is again a Yurkovich recommendation from How We Love, where you'd start, that's actually 4 phases altogether, and I've kind of consolidated 2 stages here in the number 2. But first you seek awareness. So each of them would play the role of listener and speaker, and as they are listeners, their job is to ask about the feelings of the other person and to reference the soul words work that we did up here to track what the other person's experiencing, and then to reflect that back. So with words like, I hear you saying this. And then as the listener engages and explores what the speaker is saying, the listener would be seeking for intensity of the feeling, perhaps how that feeling manifests physically. How does that feeling associate with childhood experiences? So when did you experience this as a child? What was that like for you? What's that story about? And then how does that feeling from childhood manifest again here in adulthood in terms of what we're experiencing today? The listener would ask questions like, when you feel this way, what do you need from me? In the couple, what do I need to bring? And then you can conclude the comfort circle with a resolution, with a series of resolution statements that the speaker would express, saying things like, I hear you saying this, you feel this, you need this from me, here's what I can do for you. And then the third idea I have is something that the Yurkoviches offer that's called the Secure Connector Self-Assessment. And this is something that's actually on their website. It's a self-test that people can take to assess whether or not they are behaving in a way that is in alignment with a secure connector. And so just pointing John and Alice to this resource or bringing in some printouts of what that resource is about, I think would help each of them. They each are very sort of clinical and studious and really good thinkers and workers, it seems to me. So I think they would actually enjoy an experience like that as well. So those are some of the ideas that I have for the interventions that could be shared with John and Alice. And again, so Dr. St. Jacques, I just wanted to say thank you again. I hope that is legible for you or understandable for you, and certainly do let me know if I can clarify anything. And I will talk to you later. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.